Hello, and welcome to the 2020 Champions of Talent Development virtual conference. We have a world-class lineup of speakers for you, all happy to guide you in building new pathways. Our next speaker is Professor Ndubuisi Ekewe. He is a Nigerian professor, inventor, engineer, author, and entrepreneur. He is the founder and CEO of Techidia Institute, an innovation management training institute that helps optimize business execution and growth. His session? Business and Learning Agility. We'll touch on how to succeed in today's business with unique learning techniques and adaptability, resilience and openness to innovative thinking to help navigate this current volatile and uncertain business times. By attending this session, you will earn the Lifelong Learning Capability Badge. But only if you stick with us to the end of this session. And you must evaluate our speaker by clicking the evaluation link we will provide at the end. Please join us in welcoming Professor Ndubuisi Ekewe to deliver this session. Take it away, Professor Ndubuisi.
So thank you so much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's quite a moment and a great privilege to have this opportunity of speaking before you all in this capacity. I'm Ndubuisi Ekewe. I'll be speaking on a topic, business and agility. In our construct, how we can build business systems with agility, and as well as how we can bring learning and talent development within the constructs of building these great businesses. So to do that, I'll first begin by asking us this question: what is this purpose of building a business? Or what is really this purpose of creating a firm? Why do we need to be in business? Why do we need to create companies? Of course, the reason we create companies, markets are naturally imperfect. And because markets are naturally imperfect, there is this need for us to bring a little bit of perturbation in the relationship between demand and supply. I can just speak without the slide. Because markets are imperfect, the demand and supply do not come into a perfect equilibrium point. And because they do not come into a perfect equilibrium point, something needs to happen. Somebody needs something to buy, another person has a product or service. And because that person that needs cannot find, and the person who sells cannot find, there is now a need for a company. I will explain it simply this way. I have just landed from America to Lagos, and I'm hungry to eat food. And let us assume that there is no restaurant in the city of Lagos. The only option available for me would be to begin to knock at every house in Lagos looking for somebody who has food for me to eat. Of course, you will agree with me that our construct is exceedingly not very productive, because there is the propensity that I can knock on the first 100 doors and no one will have food to sell to me. So what happens? What happens here is that even at the time I'm looking for somebody to sell food to me, there is also a possibility of somebody who has food but cannot still find me. So we have an information asymmetry. Someone who is hungry, someone who has food, but they cannot come into an equilibrium point. So when that happens, there is a massive friction which exists in the marketplace. And that market friction is something that companies or businesses are designed to solve. So one thing happens one day, a woman wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to start a restaurant. And she will call that Mama Kemi's restaurant. Mama Kemi's restaurant is a business. She has one obligation. She wants to fix a friction so that if someone like Ndubuisi is hungry, he does not need to be knocking at every house in Lagos looking for where to eat. So anytime I'm hungry, I go to Mama Kemi's restaurant to eat, because Mama Kemi restaurant has become a business to solve a friction which exists in that particular city of Lagos. So that is what companies do. That is what businesses are formed to do. Businesses have only one obligation: to fix a market friction between demand and supply. And by fixing that market friction, they bring efficiency in the lives of people. They bring efficiency in the lives of clients. They bring efficiency in the demand side of the business system. That construct, that model, that process, that framework cuts across industrial systems. It cuts across industries, it cuts across sectors and territories. If you go into the banking industry, that is city-centered. A man has extra money in his bank account. He doesn't know, he has extra money, he doesn't know what to do with it. Maybe he has just sold his cow. He has money in his house. He doesn't know what to do with it. And he said, this money, if I can find somebody who can collect this money from me, and that person can pay me an interest, let's say 10% for a year. And at the end of that year, that individual will bring back that principal, as well as also bring back that money. And pay the interest. I will be very, very fine. But typically, that individual may not find somebody who can easily come and collect that money. So you are looking for somebody to borrow the money from you. At the same time, there is somebody who needs that money to expand his own business. So he is there in Aba. Let's say he lives in Aba. He has 100,000 naira. He wants to lend it out at 10%. And there is somebody in Sokoto, in Nigeria, who needs 100,000 naira to expand his own business. But because of information asymmetry, both of them cannot come into a perfect equilibrium so that they can have a business relationship where this man that has this money can give to the other man that needs the money, and that man pays him interest at the end of the tenure of that transaction. So what happens? A guy in Lagos says, I'm going to start off a bank. And the purpose of that bank is to fix a friction that exists between the man that has that money and who needs about 10% of interest rate for a period of time, and the man who needs that money to expand his own business in Sokoto. And then when the bank is started, the man in Aba takes that 100,000 naira, he goes to the bank and drop that money. He deposits that money, and the bank says, I'm paying you 10% that you have wanted. He goes home. Then the other man that needs that money goes to the bank and says, bank, I need you to lend me 100,000 naira because there is a business I'm doing in Sokoto. I need that to expand my mission. The bank says, you are going to pay us 17%. And the bank lends him that money at 17%. The delta of 7%, what the bank has collected and what the bank is lending it, is the cost of breaking the friction which has existed between the man who has money and the man who has just received that 100,000 naira. So the bank has fixed a market friction, making it possible that these two people have come into a near perfect equilibrium point. The man that has been able to give out the money at 100,000 at 10%, and the man that needs has also been able to receive the money he needed to expand his business. Across all the ordinances of market system, this is what happens. So if you are in that business, your capacity to utilize factors in order to serve these customers will now correlate your ability to become a very efficient business operator. A very efficient business operator to now recombine folks. The elemental constructs of building businesses is actually what makes you and brings that level of agility. Every business is construed on three things: people, process, and tools. People are people that run the businesses. They are the that make it possible that we can combine the factors of production. These are the managers, food soldiers, these are the operators, these are the executive board, these are men of leadership. They are the people. And then we have the processes. Processes are now things that now make that business run. The trade secrets, the constructs upon which that business derives its life, the organic systems run. How do you build a microprocessor? How do you make it possible that you can turn that raw material into a finished product? What are the processes it has to go through? What are the elemental frameworks? You now have the tools. What do you need to convert that input? You need technology. You need money. There are so many elements of tools. By the time you combine them, you now, and then the combination needs an input that is fed into that process. We can prepare people so that they can drive that leadership redesign. Now, for the talent development, which is the other element of learning agility, because the topic I'm focusing here is business and learning agility. We have understood that we have to have the capacity to fix market friction as a business. And our capacity to fix market friction has to be correlated with our ability to have the means of combining and recombining the factors of production. But in combining and recombining the factors of production, we need to have knowledge. And knowledge can only be deployed through human elements. And that human element is now where talents on learning becomes very critical. We cannot do these things without having the capacity for us to have that knowledge element. But how can you bring in agility in learning? How can you bring agility in talent development? I'll take you back to the old constructs where the material component was universe, was debated by the Greek philosophers many, many centuries ago. At a time when they were looking at the material component of the universe, they were trying to understand where everything all started. And I was in university in my first year. The professor was trying to give us a postulation how the world we all started. He asked them a question: what is the world made of? And Pythagoras said that the world is nothing but numbers. Pythagoras was saying that is nothing but numbers, that the business systems through numbers. We can understand learning through numbers. We can understand the mechanics of markets, the construct of commerce and industry, everything that we do through nothing but numbers. The implication of that is that if you understand the numbers behind learning, you have the capacity to actually improve learning. If you understand the numbers in marketing, if you understand the numbers in medicine, if you understand the numbers in anything, you have a better chance of actually improving that particular thing. And if you go through human history, our world has nothing but our ability to make sense of numbers, because the more we can understand the numbers of anything, the better we can actually improve that system. Because if you cannot understand numbers, you are actually doing a guesswork. You go through human history, one thing has been consistent. We have been building computational systems to help us to understand our world better, because by understanding our world better, we can make more informed decisions. I'll give an example: the time they invented the difference engine in many 17th century, to the time of ENIAC, to the time the difference, to the time of von Neumann architecture, to the time they invented the microprocessor. world has been trying how we can improve our computational capabilities. So my point is this: the learning agility of the 21st century cannot be done without a framework of understanding the numbers of those who are actually learning, or those who need to learn in order to improve a business system, in order to improve a business process, in order to find a mechanism to improve the efficiency and the utilization of factors of production. Because it's only when we have learned, it's only when we have mastered, it's only when we have understood things more efficiently, that is actually the time that we can now take that knowledge, see how we can use the land, use labor, use capital, and use other factors in order to build a business that can fix frictions in the lives of customers in companies that need our services. Because the knowledge aspect of building a company, it's something that is so fundamental and so critical, because without that, there will not be a business. The agility of firms, the business agility that we have in companies in the 21st century, is something that is always in a state of flux. The best companies today are not just companies that build the best products last 20 years. The best companies today are companies that have the capacity to reinvent themselves on the fly, because the taste of customers are constantly changing. And that is the reason why the great edge of all businesses today are companies that do not just serve the needs of customers or the expectations of customers, but the perceptions of customers. And how can you serve the needs, the expectation, the perception of customer if you do not have that learning agility to understand and master the constructs of where the market system is going? If you serve the needs of customers, you are giving them a service on what they already know, on what they already know they need. If you just say, I am going to give them coal, electricity through coal in Enugu, Nigeria, you are already giving them what they had expected from you. But imagine a young man goes to Enugu where you are giving him electricity from coal, for example, and he says, I am not just going to give you electricity, I am going to give you electricity from renewable energy source, because I have seen that this woman is an environmental activist. And because that woman is an environmental activist, meeting her needs of giving her electricity from coal will not be enough. She will need you to go beyond giving her electricity from coal to give her electricity through renewable energy source. That renewable energy source means that you have met her needs and also met her expectation. And that capacity to do that means that learning agility has improved your knowledge capacity to now know that meeting the needs may not be enough. But the greatest companies on earth are companies where the talents team will not just be working on meeting the needs and expectation, but also taking the customer to the level of perception. Perception is offering customers what they have never imagined they needed, but the day they see that product or service, they begin to say, hey, this is what I have always been looking for, even though I have not asked anyone for it. I give you an example. Apple just launched iPhone 12 5G. iPhone 5G, iPhone 12 5G is not just a product. It is a cultural phenomenon. And in the next few days and weeks, young men and women across America and across the world will line up, take a day out of work. Even some of them work on contract work. If they don't go to work, they don't get paid. They take a day out of work, by hourly work. They line up at 3 a.m. in the morning. They are waiting for the store to open at 9 a.m. And once the store opens, they take their 2 weekly wage, what they have made in 2 weeks, and they open into the store and they pay for iPhone. And once they pay for that iPhone, they take a picture or take a video how they are opening it up. And when they are opening it up, they take a picture of how the iPhone looks when they hug it. They touch the iPhone, hug it, and they take a picture, say, they now go to Facebook and Twitter, and they post and say, ladies and gentlemen, this is the iPhone 12. I have got it. You know what has happened? He has not bought a product because he is not a consumer. He is not even a customer. He is a fan. He is a fan because what he is doing is not just really having a relationship with a product. He has personified the iPhone because iPhone has met not his needs but expectation, but iPhone has taken him to the level of perception. When you are building that business with agility, your learning constructs must also include the capacity to now have the learning ability to understand how this market system is moving. 21st century talent managers and champions are going to be people who can lead companies beyond building products of needs or products of expectation, but products of perception. Products of perceptions are products that when customers see them, they are no more consumers or customers, but you take them into the dimension of fandom. I want to have customers who are fans. I want to take them to the realm of fandom because when they become fans, they become agents of helping me to improve better in whatever I'm doing. As you do that, beautiful things happen in your business. You know, Steve Jobs say, I do not believe in focus group. I do not believe in surveillance because most times the customers don't even know what they need. But I need to have the capacity to anticipate where the market system is going. And when I do that, I can now take these customers, stimulate a new need that never existed, and take them into the promised land, take them into the mountaintop where they can actually experience the next big thing. How can we do it in our businesses? How can we bring agility in our market system? Agility in market system comes by moving from becoming an inventive company into an innovation company. An innovation company is a company that makes great products and services because invention and innovation are very distinct things. Innovation is equals to invention plus commercialization. If you have a business where people are coming up with ideas, but people cannot come up with great products and services, you are running an inventive company. An inventive company cannot give you the alpha. It cannot take you into that promised land. It means that your learning agility, it means that your talent capacity has to be ramped up, that you can move these products that you have conceptualized, ideas that you've conceptualized into that dimension of product services. And I give you back because if you go back more than 500 years ago today, if you look at the GDPs of all the nations on earth, we were actually in a flattened GDP. A flattened GDP in the construct that the world was not making any significant improvement. What I mean here is that more than 500 years ago, if you add all the GDPs in the world, it was flat for many, many centuries. What world was inventive in nature? People were creating some of these compounds, elements, some of the fundamental concepts in physics and chemistry, but man was exceedingly very poor. In other words, even though we have found a means of doing many things, but we could not turn them into products and services that people could buy. How can you say that you have discovered this particular compound, and yet people were dying because they couldn't find drugs to take? And because they couldn't find drugs, your idea was largely inventive. And men and women that did work those days, most of them died very poor because they could not translate that idea, that knowledge into products and services. It means there was no agility, no correlation between the needs of the market and what was happening. But the time came in the world when the world became innovative. Innovative in the sense that ideas now became products and services. And when ideas became products and services, solving and fixing market friction became very evident. The question for us in our companies is how we bringing new knowledge, bringing new learning, developing our talent champions so that we can move our companies from being inventive to companies of innovation. I'll tell people very, very clearly here that when you look at the modern IBM, you see a very great company of extremely brilliant people. They have this construct in quantum computing. They have this construct of so many things in artificial intelligence. But if you look at the market capitalization of IBM, you ask yourself, what is going on? The market cap of IBM, I think it's about $113 billion. But the market cap of Facebook hits nearly close to 750 billion. Yet, every person you tell will tell you that IBM has a very superior knowledge base than what you could imagine in Facebook. It comes down to understanding market friction and having the capacity not just to be moving in that domain that I have so much knowledge, but I do not have greater products and services that people want to buy. As you do everything, bringing business agility, connecting it with knowledge to build a company of the future, one thing that is evident is our capacity to accumulate knowledge, deploy knowledge in markets, and create a new basis of competition. When we can move our customers from those needs to those expectations to the perception level, it means that we are taking them into a moment where we can create a new basis of competition. Creating a new basis of competition is a very critical element. It's something that is so important in market system. It's something that is so critical in a business system that we can now chart our own paths. And when we do that, we can drive businesses in ways that we can actually create and find that alpha. Agility is in a state of flux because markets are constantly changing. There are new business models that are coming up. There's one thing, the one they have called the aggregation model. If you look at the top 10 technology companies in the world, they are deploying one element of it. And as you will do all these things, it's also how do we find a way to capture value in our businesses. Capturing value is key because you can actually do everything that you are doing and you may not capture any value in that business system. So bringing knowledge in the business element and bringing knowledge in the talent development and fusing them together and finding how we can use it to fix market friction. Our capture value is going to be extremely critical as we move on in this century, as we go on to serve our customers, as we drive, bringing, recombining factors of production to fix market friction at a level that is going to help to drive economies of nation. So I want to thank you all for the opportunity. And I'm very confident as we go straight into this conference or this event, we are going to have a moment to now inspire people, to tell them about the necessity of going into that thing that is very critical. As Pythagoras postulated many, many years ago, that the world is nothing but numbers. The business of talent development is not in the business of numbers. If you understand the numbers around your talent, if you can make sense of the numbers around your talent, you have the capacity, you have the momentum for you to actually build a company that has a very strong agility. You have the ability to also build elemental construct of learning in your company so that when you need whatever you need, as you move into the market, you can have clarity because through numbers, you can see what is working and what is not working. And as we do that, it's all about how can we find a service to community, a service to our company, and a service to the world. Let's go and do it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, sir.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Prof. And just for the audience, where are you reaching us from? It's in everywhere in the world.
Okay.
Are you in Nigeria right now?
No, no, no. I'm actually speaking direct from United States, specifically in Pennsylvania, USA. Mm.
Oh, wow. Okay, Pennsylvania. And could you, I
Yes,
mean, one
Pennsylvania.
question would be just your short stories about you, as in your career. How did you get to Pennsylvania? I mean, maybe the short story over there.
Okay, thank you so much. Actually, I grew up in a village in Abia State, Nigeria. I studied sciences in secondary school, then that went to university in Federal University of Technology, Owerri, in the southeastern part of Nigeria. Um, After I left Nigeria, I received a PhD in the Johns Hopkins University, then finished PhD in Baltimore, Maryland. Work in a company, we actually work in designing the accelerometer that we're using the iPhone. And before I move into the professional work in here in Pennsylvania.
Wow. So you always knew you wanted to impact knowledge, and impacting knowledge was a big thing for you right from the start.
Yes, yes. I've always been a knowledge kind of person. I actually believe in the creation, dissemination of knowledge, because I do believe vividly that the world is nothing but having the capacity to accumulate knowledge and make use of knowledge. So I've always been fascinated with this whole construct of creating knowledge and also having a way to impart it with people.
Yeah, with this COVID crisis, I'm just checking some questions. With this current COVID crisis, how do you see the new world we're going into? Because the whole world has been learning for the last 8, 9 months. What do you see as the new normal, so to say?
Yeah, COVID has created a massive dislocation in market system. It has also changed the territories and industrial system. So the new normal now is suddenly something that not many of us had anticipated maybe December of last year. But there is always something that is so big about human system. People are going to adjust. People are going to recalibrate everything they are doing in order to figure out a means upon which they can continue to live their lives. So we see that work from home, we see that anything that has to do with the web is going to become exceedingly very critical in this early age of the 21st century. Not necessarily because of COVID-19, but because some of the hypotheses many of us had thought would not have been possible, COVID has actually made those things now possible. Initially, the CEO would not have imagined that everyone could work from home and still get the job done. But COVID has given us an opportunity to experiment that the world will not fall apart, or companies will not go bankrupt because everyone is working from his house. So these are new things, and most of these new things are not necessarily going to go away. We do know that in Germany, they're already working on a legislation that will make it possible that people can have a right to work from home. We hear in America, a lot of companies say they are not going to ever come back because companies want to save on real estate. So we see what is happening in Manhattan, in New York City, where the landlords cannot even find people to rent their properties. So the world is changing. So what therefore every one of us is to see as we are going through this dislocation, as we are going through this reorganization of this architecture of the market system, how are we in our companies adjusting to make sure that we are still relevant? Because I tell people today that if this virtual system, work from home, or do business from home, or do business through the internet, if you are not prepared, you will suddenly wake up one day and just figure out that you are largely irrelevant. No one wants to know that you are a rocket scientist if you don't know how to use a virtual system, because that physical element has already been disintermediated by COVID-19. So it's a new world, and it's actually a new normal. So we have to adapt and change accordingly.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I mean, of course, nobody predicted this, but I think it's also kind of a leveler for some people to understand that they can actually sell what they have internationally. It's like the whole world was forced into a learning period to learn how to work digitally, virtually. So now they are happy to pay virtually. I don't know how you see that in changing the dynamic for a place like Nigeria, as in the learning industry. Could we export that learning industry, but still staying local?
I mean, this is a very fascinating question because when I went for Christmas, coming back in January with my family, and right there in Lagos, I was in the Abuja lounge. Abuja is the capital of Nigeria, the airport there, when I received an email from my previous university, Johns Hopkins, one of the finest medical schools in the world. They said that there was a virus that was spreading around the world. That was in early January. And that this virus has the ability to actually, they predicted so many things because I know they have so much data. So I told my wife, you see, we could get into a scenario where everyone will be forced to stay home. Said, okay, what do we do? I said, I'm going to start a program. And this program is going to be built upon that people will be locked down at home and they will not have an opportunity of going out. So right there, I was able to code right there in the lounge. We flew in. By the time we got to US from Nigeria, 250 people have paid to attend that online program. That's what we call the Tekidia Mini MBA. So what I'm saying here is this, that this thing has changed the world. That COVID has even made it possible that companies that would have requested for people to come physically to now prepare their staff, to teach their staff, they have realized there is really nothing big about it, that these things could be done virtually. And now, because the internet is both global and also local, you are not competing with the guy in Silicon Valley because you're also competing with the guy in your village. And the guy in your village is also competing with the guy in Germany and everywhere because anyone with an IP address can reach anybody. So it calls into question, how are you going to differentiate your offering? How are you going to find an opportunity so that if you are there on the web, people can pay? And I can confirm, just like the example I gave, that people actually do pay. But you need to find a means of differentiation. You cannot be another, let's say, Coursera. You cannot be another, maybe Udemy or Udacity. You need to figure out what is going to be unique about your learning offering. And if you can make it well differentiated within that market system, it is not just going to be your local customer that will pay. Even foreigners or people outside your domain can pay. Like in our program, we have people from 30 countries. It turns out there are people that are interested in learning about business systems in West Africa. There are people that want to understand how the structure of the economy is. They just want to understand where people are discussing such things. And most of them from Singapore, signed up, Canada, United States. So the point is this. It's about differentiation. Having a content that is exceedingly localized and also globally relevant. So you don't want to start competing with Harvard learning program or MIT learning program or Stanford learning program, because if you want to do what they are doing, you're going to lose. But you can build something in Kenya using case studies in Kenyan companies. You could build something in Ghana using case studies in Ghanaian companies, just like the same way we have done, and we use African case studies. And there are people that are interested in such things. So that is going to be how the 21st century virtual learning on an online program will evolve. And I'm telling you that one of the biggest companies in India today, Byjus, BYJUS, which received $500 million investment a few weeks ago, and the company is valued at $10.9 billion, is an edtech company. So that means that the hypothesis that someone has to validate this thing, we're already seeing that virtual can actually be the future of education, because there is no university I know anywhere in the world that you could value at $10.9 billion. But we have that in an Indian company. So that means that it is the future. If you want to build the best possible money-making educational system in the world, it's certainly going to be a virtual product and not just a physical one.
That just tells me that, I think I always like to bring it back to Nigeria. I know we have a global audience, but I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. So it's like we have a global audience, but if you remember the telecommunications, when we had only 300,000 or so telephones, and then we all of a sudden moved to 50 million. And our telephony was even more advanced than some other countries. We leapfrogged a lot, copper and other things, and went straight to mobile. Yeah, so hopefully, I don't know if we can, what can we do from your experience to maximize this opportunity as a country, especially the developing countries?
Yeah, I think it's not just maximizing it from technological elements. We have to build a comparative advantage in content. We have to build comparative advantage in what we actually prepare as part of this learning process. So in the early 2000s, Africa was in a phase of voice telephony. People were using phone just to talk. Then from 2010, we move into the age of, I call it mobile internet. People now started doing this internet thing. But we are moving into the age from this 2020, I've called it the age of utility. So it's about what are you going to build on top of that broadband service, that mobile internet. It's no more just surfing with Facebook or going to Instagram. It's about what are the products and services that we can build. So we already seen logistics companies that are coming up. We've also seen fintech companies. But in the educational space, how are we going to do that? So leapfrogging is not, you're not going to leapfrog Harvard. You're not going to leapfrog Stanford or Oxford in what they are doing. But you could leapfrog a local university. After all, to a large extent, most of them in Nigeria, for example, they have been locked down for more than 8 months now, on strike or whatever. But some online schools like the one I run, we have run 3 editions. So we can't just think that things have to be the way they used to be. And over time, we are seeing many new online universities opening up in US that are targeting Africa. There are so many of them that are coming up, and their pricing system has evolved. They don't even want you to pay school fees. They now make it a subscription base. Imagine going to do an MBA. All you need to do is to do a monthly subscription. And that monthly subscription costs $140. And you have to do it maybe for 24 months. No, so pricing innovation is evolving. And all these entities are figuring out how they can actually serve us. So there is a huge opportunity, but what really matters here is what is your content strategy? The content strategy is going to define everything. There was an article I had in Harvard Business Review a few months ago. I said that in the age of Google and Facebook, finding a way you can differentiate locally is going to be exceedingly important for you to remain relevant. Because if you try from day one to become like Silicon Valley, for example, or become like a Berlin company or London company, you are actually going to run into difficulty. So those of us in the developing world is, let's do what the Indian Bajos, what they did. They were able to figure out how to digitize educational system in India, and the world has rewarded them with $10-something billion. They were not trying to clone an American company. They were not trying to follow the American model. Actually, they just went straight and built content system based in India system. And it's not just for the educational system. When they brought MS, medium scale enterprises, what is happening here is that the virtual system is going to change the ordinance of markets. You used to enjoy your local competitiveness. But today, if the world is now moving digital, it means you being local, you are not running away from the big guy who is in Lagos. So because anyone can reach your customer. And that is one of the biggest challenges today. Because if you have an educational program where you are solving a problem, let's say in the remote part of Umuahia, and somebody goes to maybe one of the telcos and buys a laptop for internet broadband service for the daughter can now log in into Khan Academy I mean, Khan Academy is based here in the US. And all of a sudden, they say, this thing I'm paying you, I can get it for free from Khan. So that means you've lost that woman and that family as a customer. So what it means that you need to figure out what you have to give differently that can actually give you an opportunity for that family to continue to pay you. So it will cause disruption. It's not just leapfrogging, you can also be leapfrogged upon because the world is going to be calibrated out because anyone with an IP is both local and global at the same time.
Thank you very much for that, sir.